Have you ever wondered about the Akashic Records? For today, we're going to be focusing on that, and it's going to be a wonderful show on Wednesdays with Willa. I am your host, Willa White, and this is my weekly podcast show that airs on Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern on my Facebook page. So you can find it on Willa White Medium, and also it gets shared to the Lilydale Facebook page as well as my YouTube channel. And for those of you who want the audio only version, you can go to blogtalkradio.com/Lilydale Radio. There are other shows that are part of the Lilydale Radio family that you can tune into throughout the week. And it's always a wonderful opportunity on my particular show that we focus on a topic relating to spiritualism, mediumship, healing, family, or more. And as I love having my special guests on the show. And today I have with me Patricia Price. Hello, Patricia.
Hello.
Patricia's been on my show before. She's one of my spiritual teachers, and I really appreciate all of her wisdom and insight that she's given me over the years. And I know that she's a favorite to have on the show. I encourage you to look at the archive videos of past shows here on my Facebook page, Willa White Medium. And if you type in Patricia Price, you will be able to look at those past shows and learn and grow from her wisdom. Now, for those of you who do not know who Patricia Price is, she is a retired Lilydale registered medium. She served as a registered medium for 35 plus years and has taught so many people throughout the years about their mediumship and their intuitive development and how to minister to other people. And we're going to go through some of her classes later on in the show because you'll want to tune in and be part of those if you're local so that you can get the most out of the experience with Patricia. And as I said, today we're going to be focusing on a wonderful topic, exploring the Akashic Records. So we're going to be really going into what is involved with the Akashic Records. And I think we'll start it off with Patricia, what are the Akashic Records?
That's a good question. And I think that more and more people are getting interested in it and beginning to know a lot more about it, which is wonderful. You know, it's a very old, ancient subject. And I know for a while we kind of lost track of some of that ancient wisdom and that beautiful history. And about, gosh, I think it was, about 40 years ago, I wrote a book for my students called Mediumship 12 Lessons, and included a chapter on the Akashic Records. And I had an experience before that with my spirit guides, helping me to do my mediumship and connect with people by connecting with the Akashic Records through infinite intelligence. So I'm just going to read what I wrote about what the Akashic Records are, a definition that out of which all things are formed is a definition of the Akashic Records. In the Sanskrit, Akasha means primary substance. The whole body of records themselves are made up of tiny etheric records that store attitudes, emotions, concepts from the mental mind as well as the physical body, and including taste, smells, sights, sounds, emotions, and thoughts during our whole lifetime. And even after, and especially we believe that as spiritualists, the Akashic Records are recognized as part of the soul mind structure. Compared to, we can compare it to a large computer, taking in exactly what is fed by the conscious and unconscious mind of each individual. So Akasha are the tiny bits of information, and they're throughout time and space. It's a big body of knowledge and information and data. And of course, we can access it. So, Willa, maybe you want to add to that.
Yes, I think that's an excellent explanation of the Akashic Records in terms of it's an etheric connection that we make when we're accessing the Akashic Records. And it's in the ethereal realm. It's a spiritual realm that we can get to through consciousness, because we're always connected with our soul to information of the divine. We are a spark of the divine. And so we have that connection always, but sometimes moving into that conscious awareness that there is this greater space of knowledge that is outside of ourselves that is containing and holding the information. And I think I want you to think of the biggest supercomputer you've ever seen. And I want you to like, go infinite in terms of this. Or some people like to envision this as a library, that it's like different texts or books that are there. I know Madame Blavatsky, of the Theosophists, she understood it to be tablets of light. I like that idea of tablets of light that contain the information. And so each unique vibration and soul that is ever gone, the past, the present, and the future are all housed there.
Right. It's very sensitive to anything in the universe, anything we do, anything we say, anything we feel is recorded. The Akasha is very sensitive to everything in any life. And so again, we can tap into that. And like you said, imagine the biggest computer. It's so full of information. And again, through spirit, we can go to just the right tablet of light to get the information we need. And that is connecting through infinite intelligence. So all the things that we teach, Willa, are so important. The things like concentration and meditation, and the idea to be able to quiet our minds and connect with the highest and best are also very important to have access to the Akasha and the Akashic records. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. And my understanding also of the Akashic records, that word Akasha is atmosphere. So there are all these things in the atmosphere. Every time we're thinking or emoting, like you said, that's going out vibrationally through the atmosphere, and it is being recorded. This isn't digital recording of ones and zeros, binary code, but it's that idea of the energetic code that is always existing around us. So it's like when people think of the World Wide Web, this is like cosmic, universal, wide web that we're connecting in with for this knowledge.
Yeah, it's kind of beyond our understanding in this life. It's so immense. And I used to think when I was younger, very young, I was thinking about God, and that was scary because it was like, God knows everything, the Akashic records contain everything. Now it's not so scary. It's just human, it's our human experience, and we're all human, we're having this wonderful experiences, humans in our spiritual being, in our soul, in these bodies. And we make mistakes. It's just common. And so, when you get old enough, you just look at it and say, well, it's just stuff, like Ram Dass said, it's just stuff. It's just etheric records of that are called the Akashic records. So we learn that we become humble, I guess, and we become more unconditionally loving to ourselves and others when we know that the Akasha has everything, and none of it's, we talk about the secrets of the Akashic records, but really it's no secret that we're all human and we've all made mistakes, and we're all human. We have accomplishments, and there are wonderful things in the Akasha to cheer us on in this life and help us to know that we're worthy, and we have so much potential, unlimited potential in an infinite universe of potentiality. And that is, I think, maybe something someone will ask. I don't know if we're going to have questions and answers, but I know when I teach the Akasha and when I have my students teach it in the mediumship classes at the end of our courses, that it always comes up, well, is the Akasha also full of the future? It's the past, it's the present, but is it the future? And as I unfolded and asked for my higher guidance to answer that question for me, I was told that absolutely. And it has to do with parallel universe, the layers of the parallel universe, that's the future. If anything is possible. So in the Akasha, that is also there. And we can go into the Akasha and say, okay, which one do I want to choose to be my reality? And so even in the Akasha, we can see the potential of our future, which is an infinite layered potential of us going into the future with our choices.
Mhm.
And it's kind of, well, it's not kind of, it is extremely important that we're in touch with that so that we can make good choices. And also to remember that we have choices, not to just, live our lives unconsciously. And of course, there's a time to be very much analyzing, intellectualizing, and figuring it out. What do I want to choose? But then there's a time when we've done what we can do, and to let go and let God, to let go and allow infinite intelligence to choose for us, as we say, please, guide me to the highest and best. But again, I really feel that the truth of the universe is a paradox. So there are times, and that beautiful passage in Ecclesiastes that says, there's a time for every season, that there's a time for us to refer to the Akasha and say, what are my choices? I'm going to analyze this and intellectualize on it and figure it out and make this choice. And there's another time in our lives that we have to look ahead and say, this is a time I really feel that I just need to pray, to meditate, and then let go so that the highest and best can guide me to what is for me, again, that which is the best. So yeah, it's exciting to look at the future potential. And again, we never can tell the future. We never can tell, fortune tells, so to speak, but we can see the trends, patterns, and opportunities. Well, I guess my cat Jax is going to get in the.
I guess so.
He's
But
usually really shy, but I guess he likes you, Willa.
Aw, thanks. Well, I think you're absolutely right about this connection with future and also keeping people more in tune with their spiritual purpose.
Absolutely.
And so that they can access it from that mindset. And what you said earlier really resonates in terms of preparing yourself to enter into the Akashic records and into that consciousness of space and time as it merges, that meditation is very important, and to quiet the mind and to really listen to that inner space of your spirit and to the divine, and you get used to doing those things. Accessing the Akashic records becomes I'd say easier, shall we say, seamless in many ways. And part of that process of entering the Akashic records, I know this is the way you teach that you enter through that space of meditation and visualization, but you also have a protective guide with you for that journey that is assisting in the process. Correct?
Yeah, the gatekeeper really can be really helpful in that portal guiding us into the Akasha. And of course, all of us have a guardian angel. So even those who are not studying mediumship and have a guide that is the gatekeeper or portal guardian, your guardian angel will always assist you. But again, being in that very high vibration is absolutely necessary to have a positive experience. And we are, this choice that we have, again, our, as you were saying, well, our soul purpose, as we came into life, that soul purpose guides us to develop our soul, to learn, to progress. And we have choices. We agreed to come into this dualism. We agreed to come into this choice of being on the high side of things or the low side of things. We have a choice to be in the light or in the dark, because our choice of putting up resistance or blockages creates a shadow, and we can live in that shadow. And the Akasha also has the ability to, have some things in the shadow. So if we don't want to experience that, I don't want to experience that. I'd like to be in the light. So again, it's important to be in that higher consciousness, and meditation can bring us there. I think back over the 53 years that I've been in touch with Lilydale, and my first teachers, absolutely, my very first teachers started with the emphasis of meditation. And all my classes, circles, we always meditated. The old timers in Lilydale always insisted on that. When I went out of Lilydale and went with other teachers, they were always saying, if they were teachers of the highest and best, they were always saying, let's meditate. Are you meditating? Is your daily practice filled with meditation? So, doing anything, developing anything, even our access to the Akashic records, depends on us knowing how to meditate, that it will bring us into those higher places in the Akasha to view. And if you wish, you can go into the darker places with the assistance of the light of your guardian angel. And sometimes that may be necessary to see things that would be helpful to people. But I don't find myself having to do that very often. But certainly as I said, we're human. We all make mistakes. So
Yes.
it's the positive and the negative, the lower vibrations, the higher vibrations. But hanging out in the higher vibrations is my choice. And I know it's Willa's too.
Yes, that's the preferred location.
Right.
And, I was just thinking, while you were speaking, it was evoking this understanding of, it's a combination of attunement, alignment, and attitude. Also, I've come up with 3 A's here. This idea of attunement occurs when you're in that space of meditation, and in that space of potentiality that meditation sets us into, that understanding. And that attunement is such an important element of what we do as mediums and as healers and as souls. We attune to the highest and best. So you'll hear throughout all the different shows, or if you take classes with Patricia, highest and best. Those are words you will hear all the time because that's what we're attuning. And also the alignment with the highest and best. The alignment of what are you aligning yourself with? And if you are aligning yourself with the negative, that's where you just sort of drive right into it. But alignment with those things it's a balancing act that goes on within the person as they move through, like you said, that duality. And then that attitude, what attitude are they bringing to this and into the experience of life? Because those are all elements that are going to show up in the Akashic records. And the ways that you connect with the Akashic records will be dependent on the attitude. And, in my own readings of these things, I do feel it's important that a person be of even mind if they're to access the Akashic records, because if they're not in that alignment, they're more likely to get into a negative thought pattern.
Yes.
With that, and you want to have a pleasant experience wherever you go, especially into the Akashic records.
Absolutely. I love that. The 3 A's.
I just came up with it. I was like,
A little attitude adjustment never hurts. I know I find myself doing that. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Let's get my attitude back. And it's easy. I mean, the news always sort of gives me a chance to get off balance. And so I have to remind myself, you can listen to the news. It may not affect you. You may not be in a place in your life where this is going to affect you, but it's affecting the world around you. It's shaking the Akasha, all around you. And my attitude is so important. And my daily practice is so important to align me, as you said, making those choices to stay current, but yet to, as I said on my Facebook page recently, it's just me knowing that it's my choice to do kind deeds, do extra things that are kind, to show extra patience and compassion is my reaction to all this shaking in such a negative way that's happening around the world. But looking at history, when hasn't it been? I mean, it's just... Right.
There's always something going on.
We've always had that challenge. And even in our family life or our everyday life with the people we work with and the people that we love, there are challenges and there are shakeups and there are opportunities to have a negative attitude and not be in alignment and to skip our daily practice and to get really off balance. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Willa, that staying in balance, staying aligned and having that attitude and attunement, absolutely reminding ourselves of that is very important. And it's a conscious choice. So what are we being conscious of?
And it can be an obstacle for opening up the Akashic records.
Yes.
If you don't have those in alignment, if you're not attuned, if you don't have the attitude, those are, if you're thinking, well, what are my obstacles? That's your big one. And having fear about things and doubt about things, it's not that you have to understand everything in the whole universe, but when you come with that energy, that you have to remember you're in charge of the energy you're bringing to the people and the situations in your life. And that certainly counts for the Akashic records as well. So in terms of this gatekeeper guide that assists in helping you access the Akashic records, how would you explain to someone how to access that connection with that guide? Is that through the meditation and visualization that they can make that happen?
Absolutely. And, we forget to ask. I even forget to ask today. I am in some kind of quandary or I'm wanting an answer to something. And why am I not asking, especially in spirit, or asking spirit to guide me, my higher conscious to guide me to someone who knows, someone or something. I mean, we've got so much access now to books and of course the internet, just Google anything. I've been going through my books lately, moving, and I don't need a lot of books anymore. You can access everything online. Some books are so precious and just have to keep them. They're just something that you have to have in the material world. But there's so much there on the internet. There's so much there that we can access. And asking. So you ask for a gatekeeper. You have a guardian angel. You know that. And the guardian angel can help you. Absolutely. But a gatekeeper can help you in the portals into other dimensions. So that's the gate that is being kept. And it's also called, we can call it the portal guardian. And again, would guard these portals into other dimensions, making sure that, thank goodness, making sure that we're always not in all these different dimensions going crazy. Like, wait a minute, where am I? Am I in the, am I up in the etheric, levels of consciousness, or am I on the earth plane in the material world, or am I in the angelic realm? Where am I? And well, of course, the ascended masters, I love to be in that dimension. But again, it could be confusing if you're, if you're touching base with just your friends at dinner. Yeah. It's like, no, we'll save the ascended masters for tonight when I do my meditation. But asking for a portal guardian, asking for someone, something of the highest and best from spirit to guide you when you go into the Akasha. And so as you meditate, as you focus on being in alignment with the highest and best, asking your portal guardian to be there to guide you to the information that you want to access is absolutely the way to go. The first time I had heard about the Akashic records, but I really didn't know that much about them. And I was doing a reading early on, probably 30 years ago, in my living room at Lilydale. And I had a woman call me, an older woman on the phone, who said, we'd like to come, and I'm bringing my son and his fiance. We'd all three like a reading. And I said, fine, so she came in first, the older woman, and I gave her a reading. And of course, she had lots of people in spirit. So it was wonderful, to access them, her loved ones. And then the young lady came in, and of course, she is right at the time in her life where she's wanting to be married and change her life and get on with things, have a family and so on. So that was fun to do a reading for her because she had guides and teachers and some loved ones in spirit that were making themselves known. I think that most of our information comes from the other side anyway. I would even say all of our information comes from another dimension. So it's all mediumship. But anyway, she was good to read, and it was fun. And then he came in, and her son and the fiance, so to speak. I don't know if they were, no, they weren't engaged yet. But anyway, he sits down on my couch, and at that time, I was saying to people, please let me hold something that you only have owned. And so he took off his watch, and it was a Rolex watch. I noticed it was just, I mean, I'd hardly ever seen a Rolex. I was a small town girl. So, and I'm looking at him, he is flawless. He is such a handsome young man. And by him speaking, very intelligent. And here I am sitting with him, and I say my little prayer, close my eyes, and now, I'm seeing some of the colors of his aura and telling him. And I'm just like, and of course, his father was in spirit, so his father came through. But then I'm like, and he's like crossing his arms, crossing his legs, and has this expression on his face that he doesn't believe a thing that I'm saying, or he might be thinking, well, she talked to my mom, so she knows all about my dad, blah, blah, blah. So as I was there with him, I did remember to ask, and I said, please, the highest and best, guide me to something that's going to knock his socks off, because I just feel that he needs this. He has everything. He has looks, he has intelligence, he has money. And here he is wanting to sit here, agreeing to sit here. Let's knock his socks off. Please help me. So they took me up a wall. What I was perceiving was that they took me up a wall, and then they let me peek over the wall. And over the wall, a voice said to me, from the time he was a little boy, he's been afraid of women. And I said, am I supposed to tell him that? They said, yes, it'll knock his socks off, guaranteed. So I came back down the wall, and I opened my eyes and looked at him, and I said, nobody knows this, but you've been afraid of women since you were a little boy. And he unfolded his arms, he unfolded his legs, and he said, how did you know that? Promise me you won't tell anybody. So it knocked his socks off. And then he said, tell me more. So again, I went up the wall over, and the voice said, tell him he has 2 girlfriends and his mother doesn't know about it. And he has to choose which one to marry, because he wants to get married, but he can't choose between these 2 women. One his mother approves of, one he knows she wouldn't approve of. So I came back again, opened my eyes, and told him that. And he said, no one knows that. And I have to choose, or I'll never be at peace. And to tell you the truth, just sitting here with you today, I know I don't want to marry the woman my mother wants me to marry. I would be unhappy the rest of my life. So Spirit came through, guided me. And then I said, where was I? What is this wall? What is this? And they said, it's just a visualization of the Akashic records. We took you to the Akasha by taking you up this wall that you perceived, and then over it to access them. And I've got chills now, because I didn't know, like I said, I didn't even know much about the Akashic records, but my guide, my portal guardian, it turned out later for me to know, actually helped me to access. So it's very important that as mediums that we are able to access that wonderful information that can help someone have a happier life, a healthier life, to have more comfort in their lives because they know the truth of the universe. So absolutely, Willa, it's important to ask whether it's your guardian angel, or if you're really interested in accessing it a lot, to call in to say, please identify yourself. I want a portal guardian. I would love to have someone to help me from Spirit to always access the Akashic records for the highest and best. So you're very right on that people want to know and they don't know how. It's
Right.
easy. Ask.
Ask, and then you're kind of chauffeured through things in this regard. And it's like, it's nice to know that you have someone, when we went to Italy, right? You made sure we had guides to get us into various museums and things like that. And if we had just tried to go in by ourselves, we would have missed a lot of the important aspects of those spaces and places.
Yes.
So by having a guide that can point those out to us and know that we are being shepherded in the highest and best ways is very important. Now, I want to take us back into that understanding of if you're accessing the Akashic records on behalf of someone else, that's a very important thing to note. That this isn't about necessarily snooping into their lives. You're still going to access it only for the highest and best good. This is not something that should be done as some sort of like parlor trick or like entertainment in that sense. There has to be a depth of helping this individual in their life to reaffirm that the highest and best is working in their life, and they can make a decision in that mindset. And I'd written this down in preparation for it. The guides are the gatekeepers who allow you access to information or not, and that you never take it upon yourself to just kind of wander into the Akashic records for another person. It's not for the snooping purposes. It's the goal is personal growth and healing, not to infringe on the privacy of others. So I want to make sure that gets stated in this episode, that people understand that the way Patricia or anyone else that is accessing the Akashic records, it is done from that mindset and that purpose.
Absolutely. That's so important. And, when I do a reading, before I do the reading, I talk to the client about that any sensitive information, that I always ask the soul. I always ask the soul presence of the person permission to access information. I know a lot of times you find that people will ask about another person. And even before the reading starts, I say, if I am accessing information for you from another person, I will ask permission from the guardian angel of that person that their soul is okay with us accessing that information. I need permission. I will not go where someone does not want me to be. So that is so very important. That's karmically very low vibration to do it without permission. So
that's right. Exactly. This isn't about trespass upon someone. And so I hope everybody's listening and taking to heart what Patricia just said. This you need permission from the soul essence. It's a beautiful way to say it. And that you need to proceed with that kind of alignment for good always.
Well, that permission is so important. Even, when we work at the Stump or the Force Temple or in church or on, doing a gallery on Zoom, that we say, do I have permission? Would you like a message? That's very important. I mean, sometimes we can assume that, but, it's not a good thing to assume.
Right.
We ask permission. And, I think that we're becoming more conscious of this, which really tickles me. Let's see where it was. There's a movie about, some boys growing up in Los Angeles, and it was just a cute, funny movie. And they were echoing some things they had learned in junior high. And I taught junior high, and of course we never taught this, but they were taught that if they were going to kiss a girl, they had to ask permission. And the girls were taught that too. And they were, of course, interested in little girls that they liked, and they were 12, 13 years old, and they would, in a couple of maybe it was 3 times in the movie, they made reference to they had learned to ask permission, and they were at a party, and he asked this little girl he liked, he said, "Can I kiss you?" And I thought, this is so cute, but yet it's so wonderful to learn that at an early age, that we need permission from someone, whether we're touching them or we're going into the Akasha to find something for them, or that someone else wants to know something for the highest and best about them,
Yeah.
that we would give permission, either from our souls or from our speaking, or nodding our head or whatever, that we would ask permission to be in someone else's space. Yes, and again, here's the paradox. We are one, yes, but we are individual. And we
Yeah.
need to respect both of those concepts as we have good relationships with each other. And that really makes for better relationships. And this idea of respecting, being taught, even in school, to respect each other's space and to respect each other. And especially now, COVID, it's like, oh my gosh, may I hug you? It's like, it got a little good there for a while. And I was a few days ago, I said, may I hug you? And we had a nice hug. But before that, I was concerned about COVID. And now here we go again, it's surging again, whatever. But this day and age, thank goodness we're teaching each other to be a little more respectful of each other in everyday life, and with mediumship, and with our spiritual practices. Because again, I know that for manipulation purposes, some people meditate to tune in on somebody without their permission, and that's bad karma. It's very bad karma. So you don't want that coming back on you. So don't do it. And some people don't know. I know I had to be taught about this business.
They heard it here if they didn't know it before.
There you go. Maya Angelou always says you can't do better until you learn better. So that's so true. And thank goodness we're open to all this information. And Willa has her show, and it's archived. We can go back and learn. I mean, it's just fantastic.
So I think it'd be nice to lean into the idea of how to read the Akashic records. Edgar Cayce is a very famous person who did a lot of psychic readings to help people in their healing, and he would access the Akashic records many times to get that. But that's not necessarily our focus that we try to do as mediums per se. But there's this understanding of the Akashic records being full of wisdom and archetypal wisdom.
Yeah.
At that. So how do you suggest that people read the Akashic records? Because when you think of records, you're thinking of reading, and how that information is conveyed to a person.
Yeah, it's interesting about Edgar Cayce, because I've been with some ARE people, and I've studied a bit of Edgar Cayce and taken some classes and read a lot of Cayce. When he would go into trance and people would ask about their health, he would go into trance and say, we have the body. We have the body. Well, a lot of us feel that he was accessing a consul in spirit who had access to information, and that information came from the Akasha, the records of that person's life, and what may have caused the disease or what may have contributed to it. And then the information in the Akasha about curing that disease, or healing that disease, or what needed to be known about that disease in the person's life. So Cayce did a lot of readings about health. And some of the readings were about mental health as well as physical health, and emotional health as well as physical health. So Cayce had sort of an interesting thing going with, we have the records. And some of the ARE people disagree with that, especially when you point out to them that he often said, we have the body. So it's kind of interesting. But yes, access as mediums, reading the Akasha. As I said, it comes to me, someone reads it for me. And that would be, I know sometimes it is my gatekeeper, and Omara, and that it is he who finds it and then reads it to me, and I hear it as a voice. So again, asking for a gatekeeper, asking for help from that gatekeeper, and then knowing how they're going to communicate that information to you. Myself, it's been a voice that's come to me. But again, you know, it can come in pictures, it can come in, I mean, just anything. You know, there's even music in the Akashic records. So I've even heard music when I'm there asking for information from the Akasha. So again, it may be, I've heard some, you know, we do this every year in the mediumship training. We access the Akasha, and some of the mediumship students say that they actually get something to read in their consciousness. So, you know, there's different ways of accessing. And again, it's important to practice accessing the Akasha, to know who's there to help you. How are you going to access? How will you read what's there? And then to be in practice so that when someone comes to you and they need some information, you're able to give it, and you're able to ask in an appropriate way. You're very open to receiving in a way that's going to be clear for you to get the information across.
Excellent points, Patricia. And you know, that reading of the Akashic records can happen as a download. It's like, you know, if you think of the Library of Congress and all the things that they have in there, it's like so much more. And in terms of the Akashic records, I thought it would be interesting to explain to them that this is energy that is preserved for all time.
Yes.
This isn't something that can be destroyed or necessarily altered. Your interpretation of things can be altered.
Yes, you know, that's an interesting point. And I think just over the last 10 years, I've been in touch with that point, that it can be changed to a point. I mean, this is interesting. So okay, so an example for me would be in my Akashic records, there was a woman who betrayed me, who deceived me, who lied to me in my past. And I was really angry and hurt and so on. And then years passed and I began to learn how very powerful forgiveness is. And so I went back, I actually meditated, went back in the Akasha to that place where my anger was stored, where my regret was stored, where my feelings of being betrayed were stored. And I worked in that energy with the imprint of that in my Akashic records. And I meditated at a very sincere level, and with the assistance of my guardian angel, the highest and best in other angelic beings, and some ascended masters, especially Lady Nada, and just spent some time saying, okay, put this in the Akashic record also, that I have sincerely and completely forgiven that person. That maybe I don't choose to always be around her, but I truly, truly have forgiven her. There's no heaviness on my heart. Let that be part of the record now. Yeah. So it almost is, it's counteracted. And so that's possible. And so, you know, we no longer, so if someone accesses that in my Akashic record, that I was once angry and hurt and in a very bad place, then there's also the Akashic record that I can place next to it, like a little footnote, refer to January 2001. I did a forgiveness ceremony for an hour to forgive and up level all of that. So, you know, that can be done. And I think it's interesting, the access also, we'll go back to something you said, that I've had students who have meditated and gotten help from the highest and best, and actually went into trance and read the Akashic records and put it on the computer or wrote it in inspirational writing. So that's another way to access the Akasha for everyone. And
Yes.
they've written whole books. A couple of my students have written whole books on accessing the Akasha through trance and in touch with guides that will, take them to that place where they feel that it's important that the people in this time and space know what's there from ancient times in modern language, which we all need an update. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I know there are a few questions that have come through. So I thought if we could run through those real quickly, because I know time's going by so fast. This is such a great topic. A person's wondering if this is also the basis of life review to some extent.
Oh, it can be.
Akashic records would assist in that life review process. I would say yes.
It can be, absolutely. And a life review is I did a lot of life review work years ago, and it was so very helpful. And again, we learn that we're just human, that it's just stuff. We don't have to hide it away. We can admit, that's part of Brené Brown's whole thesis that, being vulnerable, knowing that, and humble, knowing that you're just human. That's a making for so many wonderful relationships out there in the world for us, especially the relationship with ourselves and with infinite intelligence, that we can have those relationships strong because of our life review, and then have better relationships with others and see that our life review can reflect what's going on with others. I feel sorry for some people rather than to judge them.
Yeah.
I would, rather than to be upset with them, I would feel sorry that they're in that space, and not to let that interfere with their progress and their choices. But when we see our own life review clearly from the Akasha, then we have much more compassion for those around us.
True. Oh, that's beautiful. And someone's wondering, is this like a book of paths, lessons, or truths that are dependent upon free will?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a staunch believer that one of the laws of the universe is free will, and that the better we get at making choices, the happier, healthy, and more prospering we are. So the Akasha carries that wisdom. And so if we go back into the part of the Akasha that is about wisdom and natural law, we can learn so much and save ourselves a lot of suffering and pain in this life. So absolutely use the Akasha for that.
Someone was asking about, back to the understanding of portals, that this is a portal into that Akashic records. Can all people also access those portals from the other side? I think because when people think of portals, they think of two ways.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Once we're without our bodies, we can access other dimensions just like we do now. And that's exactly what the Akashic records are. They're a dimensional truth and a level of understanding of consciousness. And so, yes, when my understanding, my guides tell me that absolutely those who are in the other realms access even other dimensions. So I would say yes, 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 in my experience.
Beautiful. So I'm just double checking, trying to scroll through the rest of those comments, but people are really enjoying this show. So thank you, Patricia. This is great. And any last thoughts you're having about the Akashic records and exploring of those Akashic records? Any last thoughts that you think would be important for someone to know if they're entering into that?
I would encourage everyone to meditate and ask the highest and best on a regular basis to just say, guide me to a place in the Akashic records that will give me wisdom. It's one thing to have information and data at our fingertips. We have all kinds of that. But to acquire wisdom is to be able to use it in our lives. And so on a regular basis, I encourage everyone to have that meditation time, that quiet time. Sometimes meditation is going outside. I was just telling Willa, at my new place, I have a weeping willow tree in the backyard with a 10-acre field and then wooded land. And I plan on spending a lot of time out there under that weeping willow tree, and bringing my notepad and pen and meditating and writing. And so, those quiet times in nature, those times when we meditate, those times when we pray, are all times that we can access the Akasha and ask for the highest and best. Ask that we might be guided into places that will give us wisdom in our lives for a better life. And when we have a better life, then we can share it with those around us. So it's actually for us and for those around us.
Beautiful. Oh, I felt that right into the core of my being. So thank you so much for those sweet words. And I know you have some classes coming up and events that we should share with people, because as I said, Patricia is my spiritual teacher for many years, mediumship development, and she still continues to teach, which is incredible to me. And I know you're having a solstice service and a ceremonies class that they're coming up in the more immediate future. So how would somebody find out? You can go to patriciaprice.com, right? But if they wanted to take part in your ceremonies class, that's for ministerial purposes, right?
Well, it's for everyone. And so if you want to do ceremony, we'll be doing ceremony. It's through the Lilydale Assembly this year. So you can just go to the Lilydale website, and it'll be a Friday night, July 17th, from 5 to 8 in the evening, and it'll be on Zoom, and we'll be doing ceremony. You can bring your own ceremonies. I'll teach you how to, I always teach with somebody else now. So myself and my co-teacher will be helping you to write your own ceremonies, and then we'll do a ceremony online that night. So that'll be fun. And the Lilydale classes, the one is, Are You a Medium? And that's going to be September 2nd. And then one during the July 29th, we're going to be again doing transfiguration in the healing temple in a circle. So you'll want to be with us, because this is true phenomena. This isn't something phony, something with all the lights out. This is something in the healing temple. Yes, we turn the lights out, but the street lights have a little light, and we do transfiguration and take photos right in the workshop, so you can see them for each other, the way that spirit transfigures over you, even manifests over you in a translucent way. We've had phenomena every time, and it's genuine. This is not about fake mediumship. So I would encourage you to go to the Lilydale website for that. And then the solstice service, that'll also be on the Lilydale website. On the true solstice, the 21st of June, we'll be meeting out at the stump at 7 o'clock. That's a ceremony we've done for, I can't tell you how many years. We started out with Easter Sunday out at the stump, and I went to California and said, no more snow and freezing weather out at the stump. We're going to do the solstice from now on. So if you want to share with us, bring a song, a poem, a story, whatever. And we always have a good time down at the stump. And we've never had to go somewhere else, which is interesting, for the solstice ceremony at 7 o'clock at the stump on the solstice itself. But if we're somewhere else, we'll put a sign up.
There you go. So you can find tickets and register for these classes with Patricia if you go to lilydaleassembly.org. And for those of you who are gearing up for this 2022 Lilydale Summer Season program of events, there are daily and weekly things that you can take part in, lots of workshops and classes. So if you go to lilydaleassembly.org, you'll be able to click on Learn. You'll be able to access the events catalog for this year. You can scroll down through it and see all of the different workshops that are going on. There's also a calendar, and so you can click on those things on the monthly calendars. You'll see, and then you can register. It's called RSVP. It's a button, but you click that button so that you can register for the classes with Patricia and other great workshop leaders for the summer season. But the Lilydale summer season this year will run from June 24th until September 4th. It's always that last Friday of June, and it goes until the day before Labor Day. So it'll be a 10-week summer season, jam-packed with lots of great activities. And Patricia is definitely a highlight for me.
Thank you. Well, I am retiring, so I'm not as active. And again, my wonderful assistants that are helping me to teach. I admire them and depend on them, and I'm so grateful for their assistance. So
Yes.
thank you for being there.
Absolutely. And just so everybody understands, Patricia is a retired Lily Dale registered medium. So she's not available for readings. So if you want to be in her presence, take her classes or catch her here on Wednesdays with Willa. So be here next week, same time, same place, 10 a.m. Eastern for next Wednesdays with Willa podcast. I'll have another great guest, another great topic for all of you. And thank you again so much for being on the show today, Patricia. It's been wonderful.
You're very welcome. And I always recommend Willa when people say, well, if I can't get a reading with you, Patricia, who can I get a reading? I always say Willa White.
Thank you so much. Yes, mediums are booking in for the summer. Guest houses are booking in for the summer. So get your appointments, get your lodging, everything figured out before you come. Appointments are strongly recommended. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. Goodbye.
Bye.